My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and I'm a little under the weather, but we're going to let that stop us, are we? So here's what we're going to talk about today, folks. Turn this music down just a little bit. I know nobody expected me to be here. I'm going to turn on Instagram right now. We're now live on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I do believe, and YouTube. Now, this isn't going to be a long show. Trust me on that one, because I'm just not feeling it. I'm sick like everybody else. But what I want to talk about real quick is what a great Christmas present Sheep No More will be, but also I've got some breaking news about some that everybody that's gotten the book might be pretty excited about. And it's going to be groundbreaking. Trust me, if you're wanting to secure your home life, this is going to make the biggest difference you could ever do in guarding yourself, your life, your business, your city, whatever. Let's get started on it. So I'm flying blind a little bit here. I absolutely don't know how many people we have watching on what. And it might be my wireless signal has not been real great. So we'll see exactly how it comes out. But I want to tell you real quick. I'm not going to beat off the book. Whoops, I just lost everybody on Instagram there. Hold on. Instagram's interesting because I can't do this on my computer with Instagram, so it has to be done with my phone at the same time. So basically, everybody knows I've written a book called Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I wrote this over a 10-year period, or I collected the information for the book over really a 20-year period, to tell you the truth, for my time being in law enforcement and the SEAL teams and working as a security contractor with this incredible company called AMTI, where I learned so much about threat assessments and how attackers look at things and how defenders can defend against that. And I went on to the FBI and served on the criminal and counterterrorism sides using this mindset. So I wrote this book. I finally got a publisher, Anthony and the guys over at the men and women at Post Hill were so gracious after being turned down for years of publishing this book. And listen, anybody that has ever done anything outside of their comfort zone will know that being turned down, that's something you got to get used to when you're an entrepreneur. And on the average, I get turned down about 3 times for everything that I want to do. So that's the way it is, and that's the way we roll. It is what it is. But I use that as motivation to overcome. And also, if they're turning me down, what will people think? Like, for instance, when this book gets out there, will people like it or will they not? What will the questions they have? And for years, all the major publishers told me that this book was not relevant, right? So what I wanted to do tonight, real quick, is I want to talk about what this book actually does and why it's a great Christmas present. I know this sounds like an infomercial, but this is an important time of the year because in January, everybody tries to, they try to, I'm going to be better. I'm going to go to the gym in January. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I think it's a very important time that people understand what this is all about because there's still time to get it. I mean, you can still order it. Even if somebody doesn't get it until after Christmas, don't worry about it. What it'll pay forward after New Year's is dividends as far as safety and awareness goes. So let me explain real quick what this book is about. This book is really a 2-part book. It's a technique I came up with called attack and defend, where you look at a target or something you're wanting to assess the threat. You're wanting to assess it for safety. You're wanting to assess it for defense. You're going on vacation. You want to assess the area to say, well, I don't know if it's safe. Is the British Virgin Islands safer than the American Virgin Islands? Is Honduras, you're going to go down for a mission with your church? Is if you're going to go like these girls that went over to Morocco and decided to go hiking in the mountains in Morocco and ended up being beheaded. Obviously, they didn't do a proper threat assessment of where they wanted to go hiking. So, and these, I think they were from Sweden. I may be wrong about that, but or Norwegian, so one of the two. But they obviously stood out, blonde hair, light skin, in an area where they were going in where is very ISIS is very prevalent in that area. So they stood out. They didn't do a proper threat assessment. So the book is really divided into two parts. The first part is how attackers think. What is there a process the way attackers carry out attacks? And actually there is a process, and it's shared universally, whether they train for this or not. There is a process for how people approach others and attack them. And so I describe in this in pretty good detail, enough detail where you understand the similarities between a pedophile and a serial killer, or a pickpocket and a special forces operator, where they choose a target and focus on that target. I'm not saying that those people are the same mentally, but the way they target, the way they pick a target is planned, believe it or not, in a very similar fashion. So that's what the first part of this book is. It teaches you about how attackers think, and then it teaches you what an actual attack is. And an attack is actually it's actually the culmination of information collection, if you think about it. It doesn't matter if you want ice cream or a pedophile wants to attack a child. What you're going to do is you want that, and so you are going to and maybe your parents, when you wanted ice cream, they said no. Society and culture says no to the pedophile. It's wrong, and it is. It's evil. So what do all individuals do? Well, they develop an awareness of the surroundings of the area, of who they can talk to get ice cream, or who they can talk to that's going to tell them, no, you can't have ice cream. It's the same thing with a criminal. It's the same thing with an attacker. They will look at the area. They will say, this area has a tremendous amount of vulnerabilities. This area does not have vulnerabilities. This area is highly defended. This area is not defended. So they're going to pick and choose which place allows them to carry out their operation. Now, I know people say, well, I can't believe you just compared those things, but really it comes down to that. It's that simplistic when you think about how attackers choose their targets, because ultimately, here's the deal. It is animalistic. It's the same way that lions will choose, and these are animals that don't have the same brain that we have, the same awareness that we have, but they will choose animals on the plains of Africa specifically because they're an easier target. They will go to areas that they know they can actually target these specific animals. So you see, it's not an evil thing. It's not a necessarily a bad thing. It is the way an attacker will, or if you want to, as I had it listed in here at the beginning of the book. If you want to look at it the way I have it listed, the predator, this is the way a predator will look at something versus the prey. And actually, in the beginning, I was going to name this book Predator and Prey, but we just didn't think that was adequate to explain exactly what we were trying to do here. So predators will always look for the easy way in, for the biggest bang for their buck, to where they can expend the least amount of energy and get in and be effective in what they're doing. It's just an instinctual way that when you want something that you will go about getting it. Now, the interesting thing about the animals on the plains of Africa is that prey are just as smart. What you'll see in Africa with these animals is that they don't just bend over and say, come and get me and kill me. They don't just take it, right? These are animals that also think. They know the tactics of the lions. They know they have to drink water, so when they go to the watering hole, they're extra precautious. They know that their young may be susceptible, so they'll put them in certain areas to guard them. So the prey is not absolutely dumbfounded as well. But here's the difference between those animals and the prey and humans, is that largely what I saw by studying all this is that humans are prey. Well, this is where the word victim comes in, because they don't prepare themselves to understand what an attacker thinks, how an attacker works. And you must think that way throughout your daily life in order to avoid workplace sexual predators. If you live in an area and you have children, you should go and understand that there are registries that you can look at to see if pedophiles are in your neighborhood or sexual predators and how they act and they work, because you can look up and actually do research on their characteristics. So we become victims, which is way different than prey. We're always going to be prey to somebody. But what I found in the human world is that we become victims because we either refuse or we just don't know how attackers think, because we don't live in that environment where it is dog eat dog, where it is fight or flight, for instance. Most people don't live that way in their day in and day out life, but in fact they are prey. And then there's some people that just say, I don't want to know. I just want to live my life, and if something ever happens, it happens, but I don't want to live paranoid. Well, that's just nonsense. So that's the first quarter of this book. All right. Then I go into detail about how attackers that are actually more organized will come up with an attacker's package or a target package, and how they pick certain targets. And so what you do when you look at this book is, as you go through, you can understand how they divide things up into sectors, how you can divide things up into sectors. You understand how you can look at your vulnerabilities, because you know the knowledge, and you have the knowledge that the attacker is going to want. So you can analyze yourself from their perspective, okay? That is something that we just don't do. That's something that the animals in the plains of Africa do, and that's what cops and federal law enforcement and military, that's what they do when they're trying to do force protection and set up real protection for their facilities, for instance. So that's what the second quarter of the book really goes into detail about how you build a target package. Now, in reality, in the real world, we call those threat assessment packages. In the attacker world, like in special forces or the military, we call those target packages, because we're looking at a target. But for your sake, although I don't go into it in detail in this book, I do focus on the fact that it's a threat assessment is what you're going to be carrying out. Now, as we get through that part, you've now concluded everything you need to know to look at your life from the attacker's point of view. So the second half of this book and the last two quarters are filled with case studies and filled with an understanding of what true defense actually is. And that is basically what the book is made up, is that it teaches you how to do a target package or a threat assessment, a brief overview. I'm not training attackers here. I'm training people how to look at their lives from the attacker's point of view. But it teaches you about target packages or threat assessments. It teaches you in the second half about your defense assessment and how to use those things that you learned by doing a target package on yourself or a threat assessment, how you can use those to develop standard operating procedures or different types of security procedures in your life, in your church, in your home, or in your business, and so on and so forth. Now, this has been a long time coming. If I had it all to do over again, I would have done all these at the same time and literally released all these together. I didn't know exactly where this was going to go with this book, so I thought maybe this book would be the culmination of this. But what I started having was people scream at me saying, we need to have workbooks for this book, because they want me to come out and teach classes, or they want to offer things to their church, and they said, we need workbooks. So here's what I did. And this, I talked to my publisher. This is going to be released in 2019, so this is coming up, all right? What you're going to have is, and we got the covers made for these, is this is let's see if I can get it where there's no glare. This is the Sheep No More Threat Assessment. Let me turn the glare on this down just a little bit. Let's see here. Hold on one second for me. Come on there. Doop, doop, doop. Stand by one second. You know, it never fails when you want to do something right. Well, I'm not going to get to it. For some reason, I can't bring up the way you change the lighting on this. You know what? I tell you what sucks about Apple is they keep changing things, and it screws it all up. Okay, let's just go back to this for whatever. Okay, so the Sheep No More threat assessment book, and down here Instagram and the rest of everybody else is looking at this. So this is going to be the Sheep No More threat assessment workbook. Okay, and as you can see, it's in black and white. It represents attacker, which it says right there. It's because it's so bright on here you can't really see it. And so this will be a fillable workbook. All right, it's going to be fillable, where you can go in and use the things that you learned in the Sheep No More, the Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and you can use it to do a full threat assessment. And I put in there 10 different sectors that you can actually assess. If you need more, we're going to have it set up where you can order more sheets. And then after that, the workbook number 2 is going to be the Sheep No More Defense Awareness book. And as you see, it's color and it has the picture of me with my FBI pin, although you can't see that. See, the difference is I want to display with everybody, the ominous threat assessment versus the hope you get in doing a good defense assessment. So those are the 2 workbooks that are going to be coming out sometime this year. But here's the interesting thing about this, okay? You can't do the defense assessment without doing the threat assessment. You got to do a threat assessment first before you do a proper defense assessment. That's the way it's set up. That's the reality of the way it is. But what's interesting is you can't do either one of those unless you read this first. This has the blueprint in it for that. So here's what I suggest. If you haven't gotten this book, or if you haven't gotten it for your kids or your preachers or your people that go to your church, your synagogue, your mayor, the president should have one of these. Listen, he needs it. He needs to understand the reality when he talks to these quote-unquote other experts. Your congressman will need these things. This book will teach people everything they need to know to do these workbooks. And you don't need the workbooks to carry out the proper threat assessment and the proper defense assessment. But you do need to read this book first. Now, this is just a mock-up of the book, as you can see here. But it's going to be a pretty big book. And basically what it's going to entail is ways that you can, for instance, you can go through here, and it's going to show you ways that you can graph all your different attacks. I don't know if you're not going to be able to see that because it's too bright. But let's see if we can pull it up here. There you go. Your type of attack, time of attack, avenue of approach. And then it's going to, I kept trying to fight. How am I going to do this with graph paper? Or not, how am I going to do an outline and teach people how to do an outline? And then I discovered graph paper. And so that's where I came up with a process in which that you can actually go through and carry out a full assessment such as this. There may be spelling errors on this, but I'm not worried about it. That's on Instagram so they can see it. And so this is actually filled, where you're going to go in and fill the workbook out. And it talks about the sector, the date, and then the information that's just inputted in there that you yourself input into the structure that I give you. All that's coming out, and you're going to be able to completely fill that out. Now, the defense workbook is going to be, I wouldn't say twice as thick as that, but you're going to take all the information that you collect, your vulnerabilities, the critical times, we'll see, the critical areas, okay? What areas are most critical? The times that those are critical, the vulnerabilities that attackers can manipulate to get to that target, and then the attacker's avenue of approach that they'll use. You're going to collect all that stuff. Sounds tremendously hard. It's not. It's really not. You know the majority of this stuff already. If I asked you to sketch me a sketch of your house or your school, and I want you to take a red highlighter and show me where the most critical areas are, the times where those are critical, and the vulnerabilities that lead to those, policies, procedures, unawareness, those types of things, those are vulnerabilities. And then I asked you to show me how an attacker could approach. You could do all that. I guarantee you could do it all. I'm just giving you an understanding of what you already know so that you can apply it into these workbooks. So this, I predict, if it catches on, and it should, it's going to revolutionize the way schools assess their defenses, It's going to show them exactly where an attacker could come from, why they would attack, the time and place that they would carry out the attack. Same with churches, the same with city halls, the same with anything in Washington, D.C. If you're going to go on a vacation, you literally can break the vacation down into mini sectors and target each one and know exactly, and I talk about this in the book, so you can target and know specifically where you're going to be most vulnerable, the time and the place, and the avenue of approach, and what can be manipulated. You know, I talk about in this book with Cleo how her and her friends went to the Virgin Islands, and she did a complete threat assessment, worked out very well, and she determined that there was the most likely place that they would be attacked would be when they were coming out from the bars at night, because there was a long distance they had to ride back between the hotels and the bars. And she did a pretty good job of that, with the exception of she didn't think about that long distance between the bars. They figured once they're in the cab, they're secured. They had no idea that the cab driver himself would end up becoming a huge threat to them, which is what occurred. You can read the book and find out more about that. I talk about my friend Susan, who went to the Philippines, and she was she called me and asked me, are the Philippines dangerous? To tell you the truth, I didn't even think about the Philippines because I'm never going to go there. But I went and did an assessment of it and where they were going to go, and I was shocked to know that ISIS was all over the place there. So I let her know about this. She went and looked at the State Department's website, found out all this information. And lo and behold, she carries out her threat assessment on each sector of that trip. A sector being going to the airport that morning, being on the plane. That's another sector. Another sector is layovers. Another sector is when she arrived. Another sector was a transit from the airport to the resort. Another sector was at the resort, and another sector was transit from the resort back to the airport, and then from the airport back to here. So she broke it up in all these sectors. What she found, sorry again, I have a cold. What she found was that there were all these vulnerabilities, all these different areas where she could be attacked, and the times that most likely it would happen. And she came up with plans on how to manipulate all these things as much as she could, and to mitigate these vulnerabilities and the avenues of approach by just understanding and having awareness of where it would happen, where it could come from. She had a successful, I would say, trip, because she was aware of the threat that they were under the entire time. Could have been bad. That's also in the book to talk more about that. So, once again, I just want to reiterate about this book. If you haven't gotten it yet, tell everybody about it. You can order this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com. I mean, you're going to get it fastest from Amazon and Barnes & Noble for sure. And if it doesn't get there by Christmas, don't worry about it. Order it now. Tell them it's coming. And even if, and I had a 10-year-old, a guy that follows me on Twitter, wrote me and said his 10-year-old picked the book up and started reading it and finished it and started looking at his life completely different. I had another guy who said his daughter's going off to college. Send it to me. Send it to her. And she said it was amazing how now she looks at everything, the way she walks to her car after class, the way she has her dorm room set up, the awareness she has when she's getting ready to go into her dorm room, when she's sitting in class, what to expect, what's normal and what's not. You know, it's unbelievable what changed in her perception of her daily life after reading Sheep No More. I've had people that do security for their churches write me. I talked to congressmen who've looked through it and thought, man, there's something to this. Well, you're damn right there is. This is the answer to not ever being a victim again. Are you going to be prey? Yes, we're all prey in one way or another. Even the lions, there's a video going around Facebook right now, even the lion can become prey when he walks into, talking about a male lion that's 800 pounds, walks into an area alone outside of his pride where there's a bunch of jackals there, and the hyenas went after him. I think it was like 30 hyenas. And he almost succumbed to that, but another lion came up and they fought them all off. So even a lion, even the predator can become prey. And that's important to know. But it's rare that the lion in Africa becomes a victim does not understand where the threat lies. And a victim allows a predator the edge because they're just simply not aware of where the attack can come from. My goal is to keep all of you from being victims from this point forward. You can order this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Get it. Give it to them. Explain it to them. Let me know if you have questions. You can reach me at jonathantgilliam.com, or you just go to jonathan@jonathantgilliam.com. You can also DM me on Facebook, Jonathan T. Gilliam, on Twitter, jgilliam_seal. And I'll get to your questions if I have time, if I can get to it. Most of the time I do. It's just like this week I'm hosting, Wednesday I'll be hosting David Webb, 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125. Thursday I'll be hosting Andrew Wilkow from 12 to 3, same channel. And then Friday I'll be hosting for my good buddy, the mighty Sean Hannity, from 3 to 6. And that'll be on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125, as well as syndicated all around the country. Not a good week to email me if you have questions for this, because I may or may not get it. I get a ton of emails when I host those shows. So, in closing, I know I've been on here a while. Go get this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I put my name behind this. I will promise you. Listen, I'm not, I didn't major in English lit. You know, I'm not, I had some great editors in this book, so pretty much all the grammar stuff got edited out. There may be a few in there. But you're not going to read this and say, this is too highbrow. This guy writes too highbrow. Trust me on that. Ain't going to happen with this book. I wrote this so that a person that didn't know anything about special forces or attacking or any of this stuff could read. And basically the whole time I was writing it, I was thinking, how would I explain this to my mom? She's as far from special forces as could be, although she's very street smart. And so she does get the concepts, but I didn't use the terminology and those things that she wouldn't get. So I made sure when I was writing this, I kept asking the question, would Mama understand it, right? So that's how I made sure that everybody else would understand it. Would Mama get it? So she gets it. It's easy to read. It's a fast read. It's not a thick book. And you'll be able to go, and then at that point, you'll be able to analyze your life, or hopefully you will analyze your life in real time while you're reading it. But then when the workbooks come out this year, you'll be able to actually put everything into play as far as that goes. Let me just show you one more time. I can get around here without knocking everything off. That is the, let's see here. That is the, let me show Instagram first, okay? That is the Sheep No More threat assessment. That's the threat assessment. And then that is the defense assessment workbook. Okay? The defense assessment workbook. So those are going to be coming out here within, I don't know, next few, well, I don't want to say next few months. It'll be coming out in 2019. In the meantime, read this. Start collecting your information. You can write stuff down. And then you'll see how much sense it makes when you get into this book. And then when the workbooks come out, you'll be able to input it right in there. Anybody have any questions for me? I literally have people shouting stuff at me on all different platforms right here. I'm not going to take questions right now because this is about my book. But there's a lot of subjects that people are asking me about other than the book. I'm going to talk about that all this week, whether it be Eddie Gallagher and the other operators that are being wrongfully convicted of crap by the Department of Defense, whether it be some of the decisions that Donald Trump has made this past week, or the wall. I'll discuss all that stuff this week on the radio, and I'll put those times and dates up again so everybody knows it. But right now, let's just concentrate on this. I want the CQRF and everybody that's watching this, that follows me, or that sees this, to go get this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Trust me, 99% of the people that read this book come away from reading it like, wow, my eyes are open. You know what that means? It means they're not victims anymore. It means they have the ability to still be prey, but just like the animals on the plains of Africa, to understand where the attack's going to happen, when it will happen, what the vulnerabilities are that can be manipulated, how to eliminate those, and the attacker's avenue of approach. I wrote it for you all. Don't let me down. If you've gotten it, Get another one, share it with somebody. If you haven't gotten it yet, buy one for yourself, buy one for somebody else, or 10 people. You're not going to break the bank with this thing. It's not made of gold. It goes between $10 and $14 depending on when you look at Amazon. And trust me when I tell you this, if you love the people you're around, if you love being around them, get this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, because you'll be able to enjoy your time around those people without having to worry. You'll be aware. That's a big difference. And you'll know when you send your kids off to college, or you know when a cop comes in that is trying to protect you, or you know when a president takes the helm or a congressman, that they understand the reality of how attackers think and how defenders will guard against them. That's what this is all about. All right. As you can see, I don't feel good. I'm going to go ahead and let me just say this one thing. I want to say thank you to Jody. She got me my Christmas tree here. I've had a lot of people saying, man, you got to get a Christmas tree. So, yeah, I got one. I finally got one. It's the Peanuts tree from Charlie Brown. It's a Christmas Charlie Brown. It plays their song, but I'm not going to play it because then Facebook will kick me off. So there you go. Thank you, Jody. And that's it. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. I hope that everybody that's sick, it seems like everybody's sick right now, that they get over it. And I hope that everybody goes and gets this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Order it right now. Don't wait. And then coming up in this year is going to be Sheep No More, the Threat Assessment Workbook, and the Sheep No More Defense Assessment Workbook. All right? Go get them. And as always, whenever you see this face or hear this voice, you know that the truth has arrived. And typically, well, my old buddy Rico would be here. But you know what? Rico and Jesse right now, let me see if I will always remember them. I don't have a picture on here that I can bring up, but maybe I do here. Hold on real quick now. We will always remember those two, and I love them to death, and I miss them greatly. But you know what? They're sitting there, and they're looking down saying, he's still going at it. He's still going at it, and they love every single one of you. So God bless Rico and Jesse and all the animals out there and all the animal parents. And let's just continue to be empowered and not be weakened. Remember, helplessness is, once you become, you become where you can walk on your own, you're no longer helpless as being somebody who can't walk. Once you know the language that you're born into, you're no longer helpless as being somebody who can't communicate. And once you learn a true awareness and how to survive attacks, you are no longer helpless. And there's no reason you should be a victim. My dogs taught me that. God bless everybody. Love you. I'll see you next time on The Experts, and I will see you guys after Christmas. Actually, I'll see you this week on David Webb, Andrew Wilkow, and the Sean Hannity Radio Show. Tune in. This voice hopefully will be better by then. Peace.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.